SVC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of iGaming Daily, sponsored by Optimove. Today's episode will be slightly different than usual, as we'll be spending the next 20 minutes or so looking at a future series that we'll be launching under the iGaming Daily banner. And joining me to talk about this new series is Optimove's CEO and founder, Pini Yakuel. I believe I pronounced that right, Pini?
Yeah, well, good enough.
Thank you. Listeners of this podcast will realize that my pronunciations of names is very, very bad. But I do try my best. But you'll be joining me moving forward on a monthly basis for, it's kind of a special CRM Optimove focused podcast. We'll talk a bit more about that in the second half. But first off, Pini, how are you doing? Are you okay?
I'm great. Excited to be here today and excited to partner with you for the foreseeable future.
No, yeah, it's going to be a good partnership. And just for clarity reasons or transparency reasons for the listeners, we did initially want to do this last week at ICE. But annoyingly, that little illness called COVID came back and literally wiped me out for the whole week. So we've still got you remotely. I can still see you, webcam to webcam. But it's finally good to get this going because this new series is set to launch in the next week or so. But yeah, before we actually jump into that though, this first half of the show, let's find out a bit about you, Pini. People in the industry know you, some don't, so let's just for those out there who don't actually know who you are, can you just explain a bit about your origins? What were you doing before you entered the kind of the gaming, the CRM sector, and how did your paths cross?
Yeah, would love to. So I'm Israeli native, born and raised here in Israel, in a kind of like a Tel Aviv suburb, you can call it like that. I was always kind of like my journey. I think I like to think that my journey actually started at uni, right? So from the day I hit uni, studying engineering, I really liked, the wisdom of that's in some of the courses and some of the classes, right? It's like wisdom of ancient math or physics or things like that. I know it sounds super nerdy, but I got excited about those things. I was very kind of like into my studies. And I remember kind of like sometimes, the first few days I go outside, it's like, I didn't understand what they said. Like I didn't understand everything that was said. And some of my friends were like, yeah, I understood it. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, and the semester ends kind of like, and I'm on the dean's list and they're all kind of like mediocre because I realized at the time that basically knowing when you know something or when you don't know something, it's a very important trait. And I didn't understand everything. So I took the time to go to the textbooks of the courses and ask the professors more questions until I really nailed it down. And I kind of like had a love affair with academia. It was a big part of my identity at the time. It was very important for me to get high grades. I would spend days and days and days studying. I remember the battles with the breaks and taking a break, or going for the beach for an hour and then kind of like feeling really bad about not getting ahead. Every student experience those feelings probably. And I did really well, and I basically continued. We had like a direct route to do masters, which I took it. It's more of a research role. So under that, you get a scholarship and then you start teaching at university and you start getting, you're like on a kind of like on a track to become a part of the academic staff. And I did that. I met my co-founder at the time, who was a guy that did a PhD in data mining. And I was like really curious. I asked him a ton of questions about data mining. What's data mining? How does that work? And then we, started to have those conversations, which ultimately led us to open something that was the predecessor of Optimove. It's what we call Mobius. It was essentially a data mining agency. right? So Optimove was built on the previous business, which was Mobius. That was a data mining agency. We worked, and then we started that thing. That thing was just kind of like meeting companies, give us your data, let us do cool stuff with your data, let us understand what's in your data, let's find different nuggets. I remember a funny story that we worked with like a supermarket chain in Israel, and we came to the CEO after we did tons of analysis and tons of segmentation and in-depth thing and pattern recognition and things like that. And then we come in and we're saying, that in your, Herzliya branch, which is one of the cities, you're no longer selling frozen chicken for the past 2 months. Your frozen chicken sales are really down. Like we saw it in the data. He's like, yeah, the freezer has been broken for 2 months. so we're like, so again, some of those kind of like funny stories and experiences taught me a lot about data and companies and how you work with companies. So those days of services of kind of like, working close with the customers, understanding their challenges, understanding what they want to do. It was really nice, but we've always had a dream of building a software company, right? So I'd like to think that like those days of the data mining agency, that's kind of like somebody wants to be a doctor, but you're bartending at nights to pay for your college tuition. So that was us in many ways. Always wanted to be a software company. We got some grants from the Israeli government, put that money into writing code. We both come from the more of the data mining, math, machine learning background, but not actually coding or building, a piece of software. So started hire some developers, and then in 2012, ultimately we became Optimove. Right, we were able to build a product. And became Optimove, and that was. I'm kind of all over the place, but like if there's something you want to dig deeper,
it's like I said, this is your origin story. It's an interesting path, and just from, let's say, when Optimove was developed, you said in 2012, how would you assess your progress from then until the present day in the industry?
Yeah, so actually, if it's speaking of the industry, right? So what happened is we did this thing in Israel, right? We had no external funding, and we didn't even understand kind of like, we met some investors, but we didn't really understand what they wanted, how things work. So we just focused on executing, signing clients, working with those clients, servicing those clients, and because we came from an academic background, we had really cool kind of like techniques and models that it was a part of our offering. And when we started productizing those offerings and we showed it to different types of businesses in Israel, the gaming guys responded in the best fashion, right? So that was basically our into the industry. So the likes of 888 and Playtech, they were like kind of like the two beacons of gaming in Israel. So it's like big companies, strong companies with global presence. Of course, we didn't sign them, but we did sign people like Play 65. It was a really cool backgammon operator. No longer exists, but at some point in time, they made a lot of money. And another operator was called Neo Games, which did become something very big. And we all kind of like Aristocrat just acquired them for over $1 billion. So Neo Games was also one of the first clients here in Israel. It was, the solution on-prem. It was still kind of like the software was very, very primal at the time. But that was the beginning.
Perfect. And we're going to take a quick break after this question, but what would you say have been the major changes during your time working within the industry, both for better and for worse?
Yeah, I think so. So the industry is obviously, a part of trends that go on in the world for sure. I think at the beginning, just kind of like, the biggest part of our value proposition was that we would sit on top of an email provider. At the time, many people in gaming use Silverpop as an example. We would sit on top of a Silverpop or an ExactTarget or whatever email solution people would have. And we would just hydrate that channel with very strong data, interesting segments, interesting personas of customers, things like that. That was very difficult for the operators to do at the time. So all of a sudden, marketing became much more personalized and much more interesting. But it's mostly sitting on top of the channel, just hydrating the channels with segments, with better segments, better campaigns, better experiments. That was the beginning. And I remember when people saw that it's directly connected to the email solution at the time, it was really cool. And then all of the Optimove data could shine. But from a tech perspective, it was still kind of like very nascent. I think we probably couldn't have supported the large scale clients that we support today. A lot of the models were, they worked, but they were still naive. They're much more accurate, stronger today. Today we run our own channel, so we don't sit on top of another channel, right? We actually do a all-in-one. So we became the channel as well. I like to say that we're kind of like a brain that grew muscles. So that's something that we did. So, and of course, kind of like we are really pioneering with AI because, as you just realized, I came from data mining, but obviously that has also evolved and changed and became a much better, stronger. A lot of things that people underestimate is like to get AI to work well. It's not about the math. It's about the ML ops. It's like the operations of computers and piping and data piping and different schedulers that work on an ongoing basis to get those models into production and to make sure that those models don't age and things like that. So I think those are the main things that has changed over the past, what is it now, 12 years.
Yeah, perfect. Like I said, first half of the show is all about listeners getting to know you, Pini, and I think we've got a good scope of who you are. We're going to take a quick ad break, but then when we come back, we're going to talk a bit more about what we can expect from this new series moving forward.
Brazil, a global economic powerhouse, deeply passionate about sports, and now home to one of the hottest markets in gaming. And we're giving it the full SBC treatment. Join industry leaders, market experts, and all the major players in the country for 3 days of content, exhibition, and epic networking at the first ever SBC Summit Rio.
Welcome back. Like I mentioned in the first half, we're going to talk about your guest appearance each month and the new series that we're running and what we can expect. So first off, this might be a bit self-righteous for me, but how excited are you to have this series on the podcast, of the iGaming Daily podcast?
I'm very excited. I think I've done some podcasting in my adult life, but not a ton. But I think you and I would be a natural fit. It's just sitting and chatting about things that we find interesting. I do think of myself as my friends back home always make fun of me that I'm like I don't know, on the if they want a compliment they'll say philosopher, and if they want to degrade me they'll say that I always drill into their heads and never stop, right? So I don't know if that's a good
attribute for a journalist. I'll give you that one. Oh yeah, perfect. I'm looking forward to it, and I think the thing for me, because I love podcasts. Obviously, I'm hosting one and produce one for SVC. But the beauty of them is a lot of the kind of video media that's out there. It all seems very interview based, very like question answer. And I've realized that's how the first half of this show has been. But the beauty of a podcast is it's just a conversational element. You get the information and nuggets that we want to provide, but you can have that conversation and the listeners feel part of it. And that's kind of what I hope we can achieve, and I know we can achieve with this series moving forward. And but you are set to appear on a monthly basis. Just what do you think the listeners can expect from our monthly show?
I think I can share some perspective, a lot of perspective about just building a business and being building a business. I think it's a very broad term. I can speak about from the entrepreneurial perspective, but not only that, even if you are now managing a CRM marketing department, it's just you and 2 other employees, you're still building kind of like a mini business within that, right? So, I love businesses. I've always loved businesses, even when I walk down and there's like a moms and pops kebab shop, right? I'll talk to them and see, what they're making, what's their problems, what's really difficult, it's super hard to find cooks, they always cancel on the shifts. And then my wife has to go, it's always like, it's a lot about problem solving. How can you approach different problems and solve them? I think, understanding the essence of what makes things in business operate the way they do, right? There's the human element, there's sometimes it's ideation, right? Just you need to have this understanding or this moment of epiphany that you need to change your ways and do things differently. And so I can talk a lot about, because this has been my journey, right? So growing Optimove from a team of 1 to a team of 500, and doing it without external funding. So what it tells you is we have taken funding over the years, but number one, pretty late. And also we've never used it, right? We only use the money to buy companies. So we run a profitable business, and this tells you that we know how to be efficient. We know how to run a business in a smart way. And I think I can contribute a lot about that. You got some kind of a challenge, you got some kind of a problem within your department or a organization, or whatever it is, we can talk about that. So at Optimove over the years, we've had multiple failures. There was moments that we actually broke. I think back in 2018, 2019, I was like really crushed. I saw my dream basically fade away. I was listening to sad music, just like my girlfriend broke up with me. I was living in New York City at the time. I would walk in New York City and my face looked grim. Like my friends would say, you would just see me kind of like on a random, dinner or lunch. It's like, hey, what happened? I was like, nothing. Well, what do you mean? Like, you could feel on my face that something happened. So I went through that and lived to tell about it, right? So basically, saw all the problems, understood a lot of things, right? I went through a big period of examining myself, because before that, there was like 5-6 years when I thought I was God's gift to humanity. I thought every decision I make is spot on. I thought that, every hire I make is the best hire on the planet. I was younger and cockier. And then when things started to break, I did the complete opposite. I started to question everything I do. I started to look deep and see where I make mistakes. Why do I make mistakes? And today I'm at a very I like to think mature place where, I've seen a bunch, I know that not all of my ideas are great. Some of them become great. Some of them do not. I know that I understand people better. I know when it's important to insist on something with your staff and to challenge them, and when it's important to actually take a step back. It's not worth it for me to challenge them on something that's maybe smaller, or maybe they want to have a stab at it. So you're creating a better culture. So a lot of things like that. But I think we can expect this. And then obviously we can expect the actual practice of CRM marketing. That's obviously another thing.
Yeah. One of the things I'm kind of looking forward to with this podcast, because iGaming Daily, we focus on kind of the break-in or the fresh news within the sector. And I'm looking forward to kind of reflecting back on some of the bigger stories that had broken since we last spoke, but actually looking at it from a CRM perspective. And just for you, obviously, Optimove in that space, just how pivotal is CRM to the industry?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's, look, I'm biased, and obviously I'm going to say it's very, very pivotal, but also in the numbers, you see that, if you see kind of like our size and the number of brands that we work with within gaming is a testament to the importance. I think the importance comes from in the gaming industry is an industry that's number one, very digital. It was one of the first industries to actually go digital, right? So the notion of being digital, consuming data, making conclusions from data, activating data to improve your business is not foreign. It's basically a concept that was born with the industry. So the industry immediately adopted that. And CRM marketing is all about that, right? It's understanding your customers and your players, and then targeting them in a more personalized fashion to ultimately make more money, increase the lifetime value, and have them choose you over and over again. And in gaming, I see, because we work with other industries as well, right? So we're, for example, we work with Sephora in the US, right? Which is a major, big client of ours, very exciting brand. Everybody loves that brand. And we work with Space & K in the UK. We work with Tesco Bank. We work with loads of different types of industries. And ultimately, the gaming industry is really the industry in which CRM marketing is strategic, right? So it's strategic. It goes all the way up to the C-suite, right? All the C-suite care about, what their marketing department is actually doing with Optimove. And that's really exciting. And I think the reason it happens is because the industry, if I want to make a bet, I can probably, you mentioned before when we had a chit chat before this thing, you talked about, I understand that you love the English Premier League, right? And exactly. So let's say Man United is playing Man City, and you want to place a bet on that game. Well, you can probably do it in multiple places, right? And maybe the odds are a bit different, but to do that basic action of just placing a bet, that part of gaming is commoditized, right? Agree with me. There's many people that will take your bet, fine. How do you separate yourself, right? So you can build a better product. You can, maybe the way your bet slip engine works nicer than the other guy. But CRM marketing, how you talk to the players, how you engage with them, that's very, very important as well. It can also become a differentiator. And we saw, especially some of the brands that we were able to grow with. I think Entain is a group that we grew with through all their acquisitions, right? We just started with Casino Club, which is a small brand in Germany. And that was GVC. It was super small. It was Casino Club and BetBoo. Then they bought Sporting Bet. So we got Sporting Bet, right? And then they bought bwin Party. So we got bwin Party. And then they bought Ladbrokes. So we got Ladbrokes. But the way they did it, kind of like they executed as a business in a super, super impressive fashion. It was really a masterclass in business to watch how these guys operate. And we were just there for the ride, right? And obviously they really believed in our technology, that could be a separation, that could be a way for them to get an edge. And they did. They executed and still do masterclass of CRM marketing. It was just so sophisticated and engaging, real-time data, deep segments, predictive segments, all the channels, on the site, email, mobile, everything in the betting shops. Like everything was just so smart and so engaging to the players that they really got an edge. So I think, and many others as well, right? It's just one example because Entain just grew. It was a very small client of ours, and all of a sudden through M&A, it became this Entain thing. So, I was able to witness that. So I think that's what makes a difference in gaming.
Perfect. We are going to round off this episode of the podcast now, Pini, but let's do a final shout out to the listeners. In a sentence or two, why should they keep tuning into our show on a monthly basis?
In a sentence or two, why should they tune into our show? Will be interesting. I promise there's going to be one nugget a day that they can take from the show and think about it for the rest of the day.
That's perfect. That's a great little thing, that one nugget of information that you'll take.
Hopefully one nugget a day, yeah.
Perfect. Pini, thank you for just taking your time out today and introducing yourself to our audience. And I look forward to our monthly show, and I'm sure the audience will too. So thank you very much.
Cheers, James. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.